Feels not to mix them up.
Hello, everyone. This is the panel for the conference where we invite 4 different scaling strategies onto the stage, and they fight about it. So it's going to be pretty fun. So we have 4 different members, all different philosophies of how we scale. And of course, the current state of blockchains is largely focused on the layer 1s. Ethereum gas fees are super high. You can't really do too much. Even Avalanche, that has scaled out, has also had the fee market start to explode on the Avalanche chain as well. And so we all know, as people that believe in crypto, that the future state of crypto is not the current state of crypto. And the future state of crypto is much like the internet, where we actually have an abundance of block space supply, and fees will go to very, very low numbers. But we have different ideas and philosophies of how we actually get there. So each 4 members on the panel here have their own philosophies, have their own projects that are executing in different ways, and we're going to explore the different strategies on how we actually produce more block space supply than there is block space demand. So we'll start with Luigi to my left. Luigi, can you introduce yourself, your project, and the strategy, the philosophy behind how we scale out to the whole entire globe?
Sure, thanks, David. Yeah, my name is Luigi Demeo. I head a DeFi over at Ava Labs, the firm that helped build the Avalanche blockchain. Avalanche essentially believes in scaling horizontally the network via something we call subnets, which are effectively individual chains that are interconnected in a unique way via the P chain that we have in our primary network. So that's our quick one. I'm sure we'll get into it a lot more.
Thanks, David. Hi, everyone. I'm Mihailo. I'm one of the co-founders of Polygon. Polygon is the leading blockchain scaling platform. We have more than 140 million active user wallets at the moment, more than 35,000 applications that are already using Polygon, including premium Web3 projects and including popular Web2 and enterprise names from Facebook, Instagram, Coca-Cola, Starbucks, you name it, basically. So we're very happy with the rate of the adoption currently, and we're very bullish on ZK primarily as the scaling tech. So ZK cryptography is, for those who don't know, is a family of cryptographic techniques and primitives that has one very interesting property. It allows basically to prove the validity of certain transactions or mathematical statements without revealing the actual statement itself. Some side effects or some side properties of this cryptography are actually allowing us to scale and actually expand the vision of Ethereum to the mainstream audience and to the world. So we can go deeper into that, but I guess that's the gist of what we're trying to do with Polygon.
Steve?
Hi, my name is Steve Newcomb, and I'm the Chief Product Officer at ZK Sync. And ever since Vitalik Buterin said that ZK rollups are going to be the end game for scaling Ethereum, there's been the long-awaited perfect mixture of a ZK rollup that is EVM compatible, that is working with Solidity, and that is fully open sourced. And right now, there's a whole lot of light shining on our project. And right after this, I need to go get back to work because there are many projects that are under development for ZK rollups. We're the one that's launching in 36 days on mainnet. And so we have a lot of expectations that are coming to the table, and we are seeing an amazing amount of projects coming to us to port from all of the other L1s and all of the other types of efforts of scaling that are not ZK. And it's an exciting time in the Ethereum community that we get to extend not only the technology, but the values of Ethereum.
Mm-hmm. Hey, everyone. I'm Stephen Goldfeder. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Offchain Labs. Offchain Labs is a team that's building Arbitrum, the leading layer 2 scaling platform for Ethereum. Our philosophy in scaling is relatively simple. We want to scale, so we want low fees, we want compatibility, but we do not want to compromise security. Arbitrum is the leading optimistic rollup and actually the only general purpose rollup that's live today and has about 50% plus adoption share in rollups, including the DeFi blue chips that you may have heard of, Uniswap, SushiSwap, Curve, Aave, companies like Reddit, and all the infrastructure that you likely know. Also critical to our philosophy is giving that scale to users, giving that security to users today. I don't come into this fight with a particular tool in mind. I don't say, hey, I have to use optimistic or I have to use ZK. I say I have to deliver security scale to users because users need that today. I don't think this is controversial. I probably have been researching zero-knowledge proofs before anyone else on this panel. And when we came to design Arbitrum, we just knew that ZK wasn't ready yet, and we still believe that today. But again, our name isn't optimistic sync. Our name is Offchain Labs, and our solution is Arbitrum. And whenever it makes sense to include ZK proofs, we absolutely will, because we're married to the result, not the tool. And the result is delivering scale to users today and staying on the cutting edge, which we're doing today and will continue to do for years to come.
The conversation between optimistic rollups and ZK rollups is certainly interesting, and we're definitely going to touch on that. But first, I want to go into how each of your guys' respective platforms gives customizability and optionality to people that are interested, or companies that are interested in doing something with crypto, but either the Ethereum layer 1 gas fees are too high for their use case, or they don't really want to share a blockchain with somebody else. So there's many different ways for scale to happen, and kind of the way that the generalized idea is that we can't fit the entire world on one chain, or perhaps even on one specific layer 2. We actually need more customizability and more expressiveness in our blockchains that settle down to settlement layers, like Avalanche, like Ethereum. But we also need companies to be able to kind of manage and control their own blockchain. We saw DYDX go onto the Cosmos app chain ecosystem in pursuit of this customizability that's app-specific to a specific company. And we're seeing also with Arbitrum using Reddit. Reddit's using a specific layer 2 that's kind of their own domain, giving kind of them the freedom and the comfort to express what they need. And when you do this for all companies, they all get to have their own blockchains. That is how you scale Blockspace. And so all of you guys have different ways for companies to have their own control and have their own surface area for scaling. And so I'm wondering if you guys could walk us down that road. How do you see customizability and producing more block space on app-specific needs? Luigi, I'll start with you.
Yeah, sure. So this is something we actually discuss a lot, and I think it was primarily the real vision behind Avalanche and the subnet architecture. Emin Günsir, who is the founder of Alva Labs, former professor at Cornell, one of the things that he really envisioned was that we need to digitize all the world's assets. And one of the things that you're going to need to do that is customizability, as you said, and programmability within the certain blockchain that you're creating. So subnets, for example, are a way to spin up a new blockchain, custom VM, if you want, or we have a subnet EVM SDK that you can leverage. And this allows you to customize a few different things: your gas limit, your gas token, for example, also the validator set that you want to use. So let's say you're a supply chain company, you may want only the participants in that supply chain to be the validators. Or let's say you're some consortium in traditional finance, you may want only the actual broker-dealers or ATSs to actually be validators for that subnet. So there are a million use cases whereby blockchains can be accessible and usable. And the way Avalanche approaches this is a subnet architecture, which allows for the chain within the protocol itself to continuously horizontally scale. And what I mean by that is, as load comes to one chain, you can offload that into a new subnet over and over and over again, and use the existing validator set on the primary network. And this is all made possible by virtue of the Avalanche consensus that was brought. And this is the real innovation, I think, that Avalanche brought, which allows sub-second finality and a very large validator set. So each of the subnets is bound by that as the common denominator, and within the protocol itself, it can scale. This is just simply a different, I think, approach than what Ethereum is taking, whereby there's a settlement layer, and then there's L2s and various different scaling solutions that are connected to it. Whereas this approach is more within the protocol itself, you can spin up your own chains for various use cases.
Mihailo, how does customization come on Polygon?
Yeah, so Polygon is a network of networks. It's a multi-chain network built around or on top of Ethereum. And in this multi-chain framework, we recognize two types of networks. One are the common networks that we use today, which are public networks, such as Ethereum or Polygon's POS chain, and the other type are dedicated networks. So in the early days of blockchain, and until this point, probably, these shared public networks were the standard, I guess. And we can, I think, draw an interesting parallel between Web 2 world and early days of the internet and the early days of Web 3, which we are currently in. So back in the days, shared Web 2 hostings were generally a normal thing. And as the internet matured and Web 2 startups and internet projects were reaching product market fit, dedicated hosting became the norm. So it became a necessity. You cannot share resources and rely, and accept that a bunch of other applications are using your server. So we're seeing that now in Web 3, I believe, as more and more applications are reaching product market fit. They require basically dedicated throughput, customizability of their chains, etc. So we introduced recently the concept of supernets, and supernets are actually dedicated chains that are, in most of the cases, app-specific, basically. They can be customized in multiple ways with regards to security assumptions. They range from fully independent chains, which are normally good solutions for enterprises, for example, to fully secured by Ethereum chains, aka layer 2s, in terms of block times, block size, all these consensus algorithms. We have a flexible framework called Polygon Edge, which is used to build these supernets, and that's how we're approaching this customizability. And we're seeing great interest in the supernets program. More than 40 projects are lined up currently to launch their own supernet. So yeah, that's how we go about it.
Beautiful, thank you. Steve, this conversation with customizability gets really interesting when we start talking about ZK rollups and ZK sync. Can you talk about the ZK sync layer 2 and also the layer 3s that are in hot topic these days on crypto Twitter? How does this fit into the world of customization?
Yeah, so 36 days away from ZK EVM, and think of that as the base chain. And that's going to inherit Ethereum's security. You're going to get about a 10x bump, maybe a little bit more than that in Ethereum's scalability, TPS, and so forth. What layer 3 is about infinite scalability and infinite customization. So at layer 3, there's going to be 3 options. We allow people to structure what we call hyperchains, but they're really just fractal blockchains. And what those 3 options are, one is a ZK rollup recursing inside of another ZK rollup, where all of your data availability is on Ethereum, and you inherit Ethereum's security all the way up to layer 3. A second option is going to be called ZK Porter, where you can split your data. So the data that you need a lot of security around, but you're willing to pay a little bit more for that security, you can put into Ethereum. And then the data that you need really high transaction speeds and really, really low gas fees, you can put on an off-chain blockchain. And then the third option that we're going to provide in layer 3 is called a Validium. And that is where all of your data can be put off-chain. And that's where you're going to see scalability go up into 100,000 times that of Ethereum. And you're going to see gas fees go down to like almost irrelevant. And what it is you're allowing each of the people that are creating their own blockchains and using a blockchain to have optionality. You get to choose your security and performance trade-off in our layer 3. And then there's 3 other big things that we're offering in layer 3. Number 1 is you can choose your fractal blockchain to be private or not. And that's a topic we could probably talk about for 10 years. And then secondly, one of the things that's magical about layer 3 is that normally when you're talking from one blockchain to another blockchain, it's a non-native bridge. And I'm not going to do this justice here. We don't have enough time. But because no matter what fractal blockchain you have, you're all sharing the same circuit infrastructure in a ZK world. That actually allows us to go from one blockchain in layer 3 to another with a native bridge. And that's going to be huge for being able to trust the blockchain environment and not have the hacks in the bridges anymore. And then we're also announcing that we have an LLVM compiler. And so we all know that everybody needs to code in Solidity, and there's composability in Solidity. But our compiler allows people to now come into the environment, and we can embrace people that know Java, C++, Python, and so forth. So that's very, very important to the environment out there. So again, think of the base chain layer, 10x improvement, maybe 20. Think of the layer 3 as infinite scalability with infinite optionality on how you can customize things.
Steve, this is actually already in production with a little bit with Arbitrum AnyTrust. Can you talk about AnyTrust, the AnyTrust system and what Reddit's doing, and just overall the Arbitrum's ability to allow for companies to get what they need out of a blockchain?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, as you mentioned, Arbitrum AnyTrust, we call it Arbitrum Nova, is the chain that we have that is on the AnyTrust technology. And that's a chain that is really targeted at gaming and social. And the fees today on that chain are quite low, like less than a cent for ETH transfers, maybe 2 to 3 cents for a swap, and everything. You can do anything on the chain, so relatively quite low fees. But the nice thing about the chain also, it's a general purpose chain, so you can go ahead and launch on that chain too. It's a public chain. And on this question between like, what does a project want? How do you scale? Do you want your own chain, or do you want to be on a public chain? So one of the beauties of the blockchain is the ability to synchronously call another application. And we see this in DeFi, where like I'll take a loan out in Aave, and I'll do a swap here, and I'll come back here, and like there's 15 protocols involved in a single transaction, which is pretty magical. And for that level of interaction, you need to be on the same chain. But there are some apps, particularly maybe some NFT projects, that say, hey, I don't care about this. I don't need to be resident with them. I want to be on my own chain. Often, I think that's a bit misguided. For some, it is correct and it works. For some, it's misguided because you don't realize what you're missing out is all the infrastructure. Like, you may not care about the synchronous connection, but you might still want chain link price feeds. You might still want Etherscan and all the public. You might still want Infura or Alchemy and all the public infrastructure. And it's hard enough to get the public infrastructure to support the dozen of public chains there are. When you go into the hundreds or thousands of app chains, it becomes much more difficult. So that's another thing as a developer you really have to ask yourself is not only do I need the synchronous interaction, but do I need the public goods that exist on this chain? And do I have enough pull to get those public goods to come to my app chain? If the answer is yes, then we absolutely have the ability and we're, to launch layer 3s, AnyTrust chains that are on top, so you can have your own dedicated environment. Those could be general purpose. Those could be specific chains that only you as the developer can launch your contracts on. But it's the trade-off between the public infrastructure and the app chain. And by the way, we've come around to this point a lot. And that's what you get when actually building a system and talking to developers. Initially, when I was in the academic sense, if you look back at the Arbitrum academic paper, we imagined there being like per application Arbitrum chains. But we didn't really appreciate the difficulty of getting the infrastructure live on those chains. And now we're thinking about this dual model. And what you need then is really good public chains that scale really, really well. And you can afford a lot of projects in them, and also the ability for projects that launch app chains that really know what they're doing and really, really want it. Those should be available as well.
So we were actually recording, me and Ryan at Bankless, we were recording with Vitalik yesterday for an episode on what's next after the merge. No one really knows what's next. We all kind of feel lost now that the merge is behind us. So we need that new narrative. We need the new thing that's next to look ahead. And he said that he has been overwhelmingly impressed by the ZK rollup teams. They came to market way faster than expected. And Steve, you said ZK Sync is launching their mainnet in 36 or 37 days. Can you talk about
36.
And also 36 days. Can you talk about like why do people make the claim that ZK rollups are the gold standard for scalability, and how do they come about so fast?
In terms of the gold standard for scalability, one of the things that's important as you scale, and I think we would all agree to this, is that you don't want to degrade security, and you don't really want to degrade decentralization as much as you can. And as you scale, you need to make trade-offs in doing so. And the age-old argument between the optimistic rollups and the ZK rollups is that ZK is a much more elegant way of doing that, and that the usual dig on optimistic rollups is the 7-day settlement problem, which can be handled in elegant ways as technology gets better. And I think the way it'll play out is in the layer 2 space, optimistic and ZK might be relatively equivalent on optionality and scale. I don't think we're going to make any claims that we're going to like blow away optimistic prices and scale at layer 2. Where the real game happens is at layer 3. I think that what our premise would be is that layer 3 ZK methods scale with much more security and without risking decentralization, when I look at the methods that are used in optimistic rollups to scale, I worry about risking decentralization primarily. I think security can be pretty good in the optimistic methods, but we all know that we've got to get everybody to trust crypto for mass adoption to occur. And, we're now like in the 1995 era when there was 25,000 websites and nobody trusted the internet with their credit card. And we got to fast forward to like 2005. Now, by then, we had SSL, we had ways of trusting things, and suddenly there were 60 billion websites. And that's something that I think is very important for our community, is that as you scale, you've got to maintain trust, you've got to maintain security, and you've got to have decentralization so we can't have things blown apart. And that's a very difficult thing to do. And basically, the argument is ZK is better than optimistic to do that. I think it's healthy to have multiple approaches to this. So a lot of people want the L2s to go battling each other. I cheer when you had your 7x improvement when you launched Nitro. I watched the whole show cheering.
Thank you.
So I think it's good for our community as long as we are scaling Ethereum's values and mission and really, really hold true to security and decentralization. Then I think we should cheer each other's successes and not fight each other's successes.
Mihailo, in the Polygon ecosystem has seen some crazy adoption, especially during the DeFi summer days and afterwards. How do you see the ZK rollup technology roll out in the same way optimistic rollups have seen that adoption? How do you, if we can take lessons from the world of optimistic rollups, how do you see ZK rollups being adopted by teams, but also by users and developers?
Yeah, so great question. First of all, Polygon is an agnostic platform. We support all scaling solutions by default, by design. But we are generally very bullish on ZK, and we recently, in the end of the last year, we announced this big fund and a commitment to ZK technology in our ZK thesis. And the result, the outcome of the thesis so far is the Polygon ZK EVM that we recently announced. And Polygon ZK EVM is, as you said previously, should be the gold standard or the holy grail of scaling. What does that mean? Polygon ZK EVM has three very important properties. First one is scaling. The second one is security. The third one is developer experience. So ideally, you want all three if we're talking about adoption and bringing that ZK technology to the masses. You ideally need developer experience to stay on the same level or stay the same like it is on Ethereum now. So we are very excited that we kind of managed to square this triangle and deliver all three features at once. So not sacrificing security, delivering scale at the same time, and keeping the same developer experience like on Ethereum. So all programming languages, Solidity, Viper work out of the box. All developer tools work out of the box, even end user tools. So this is the way to ensure the adoption of ZK tech. That's how we're looking about it.
Stephen, in the Arbitrum ecosystem, you said in your intro that Arbitrum would be interested by ZK rollups potentially. What boxes need to be checked for Arbitrum to seriously consider being turning into a ZK rollup? Is that a potential feature?
Yeah, to consider using ZK technology in Arbitrum is the question?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so like I said, we go to the drawing board looking for the best tools and not with a specific bias in mind. The fact of the matter is, by the way, I chair as a cryptographic researcher by trade. I chair all the successes that the ZK teams make. I think they're doing incredible work. I think that being said, the facts are that the most expensive thing in ZK technology is proving, the cost of proving, and that is you have to run these computations in circuits, which is a different computational model. You have to map Solidity if you want to be a ZK EVM to these circuits, so there's a lot lost in the compilation, and then you have to go and do these actual proving, and that's actually a very, very expensive computation. I know that you mentioned, Steve, that you're launching mainnet in 36 days, but I haven't seen the prover metrics yet. I know that's on your roadmap, but that's, to me, is the critical question of the viability, and that's, in all the research we've done, that is the part that's not ready yet. The proving is just going to be too expensive, because ultimately, the proving, by the way, to clarify, happens off-chain. So it's not directly visible on-chain. The part you see on-chain, which is the verification, very, very cheap, very effective, but the proving is sort of a hidden cost But it has to be exposed to users, because remember, we're scaling technologies. And if someone's bankrolling this in the background, that's not very effective. So ultimately, the users, for the system to be sustainable, the users need to pay those costs. I haven't seen, I've seen amazing, amazing increases. Like when Polygon EK VM, I think, is a lot better than I thought we'd be in a year from now, but we don't believe that these costs are at all compatible today with optimistic rollouts, both improving the costs and also in the compatibility. Because since you have to go through this model, we run Solidity code directly. You have to go through the translation. Just a lot gets lost in that translation. There are opcodes that can't work. I'm bullish on these people to figure a lot of that out. And like I said, if and when they do and it becomes competitive, we'll absolutely look to incorporate that in our systems. I just don't believe that we're there today, or we will be soon.
Cool. Luigi, how does ZK Tech interface with the Avalanche ecosystem? How's Avalanche adopting this?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think I echo a lot of Steven's points here, right? The research in ZK has been going on for a very long time. Has really made advances in the last few years, especially thanks to these projects. But at this point in time, that has continuously changed in terms of like the actual science behind ZK. It's continuously shifted in the last few years. So it's very hard to build. If you're an enterprise, for example, it's very hard to build on top of a ground that is shifting, right? And so the way we view it is we're building a general purpose layer 1 blockchain that embedded in the protocol provides a way to build sub-networks, right? And there's no reason that if ZK or as optimistic rollups continue to be very prevalent, that those can't also be subnets, right? A subnet is also just a differentiated validator set that's interconnected between the chains. So from our standpoint, we are providing the lower level technology for these to be built on top of. And I just think that there's a lot by way of fragmentation and trade-offs that aren't immediately evident until you have new types of use cases like DeFi that sort of open the spectrum of what's an issue. Like for example, in a subnet today with the subnet EVM SDK, you can just program certain parts of your DEX in the precompile and make massive advancements on your DeFi application. This is possible today. So these are things that are going to have to be worked out over time as we sort of adopt this technology.
Cool. We got about 3 minutes left, so since we're all here in this room together, I want to give the projects here the opportunity to give us some alpha. We'll start with Steven. Steven, what's exciting in the Arbitrum ecosystem over the next months or quarters or something in the near term? Why should we be excited about Arbitrum?
Yeah, so I think you should be excited about Arbitrum. One thing that just happened yesterday was the launch of OpenSea and Arbitrum. Arbitrum is the DeFi hub today, but I think we're going to see increasingly NFT adoption. So if you haven't yet, go take a look. You can buy your Arbitrum NFTs on OpenSea. And I think that's really the idea of a very, very general purpose platform that has use cases for everyone. And the other big thing that I think we're seeing a lot coming to the Arbitrum Nova ecosystem is gaming applications. So continuing to be a DeFi innovative stronghold, but also branching out to mainstream NFTs and gaming as well.
Steve, you guys have a mainnet soon. Why should we be excited about ZK Sync?
I'll end with what I started with. Vitalik said it very well. ZK is the end game for scaling Ethereum. And we have been in testnet, making sure we have great security. We actually go through a double security audit for every single thing in our system to make sure things are secure. It is an intensely exciting time that we are that solution that Vitalik has been talking about for so long. And all of the other ZK solutions that are out there, the other approaches, are maybe about to enter testnet. But that's a 9-month process to get to really a mainnet. And it is exciting that we are 36 days away from what he was talking about. And tomorrow, I'm going to be giving a talk on L3s. And we'll have a little bit of a surprise tomorrow because our L3 solution is ahead of schedule. And we're going to have some very good news about where that's going to be coming out. So for those projects that are interested in seeing the ZK rollup vision come true, I think we're the ones to shine the lights on, because whether there's been research in ZK, and you certainly know way more than I do, but I'm the guy putting it into production. So I've seen what the numbers look like, and we get to see, everyone gets to see what our gas fees are and how well we do. So I'm scared shitless. I'm not going to lie. Like I'm shitting Twinkies, and But I'd rather throw up on stage than be sitting in the audience watching history happen. I want to be part of history, and we are part of Vitalik's vision, and I couldn't be more prouder about it.
Mihailo, what's coming up next in the Polygon world?
Yeah, Polygon EK VM is approaching the mainnet rapidly. We are, I believe, several months far from the mainnet at this point. So we are very excited about that, of course. And one thing I can say about Polygon EK VM is compared, for example, to ZK Sync, we are excited to see the project on the mainnet, primarily to see actually the prover, to see the cryptography, to see the performance, because we don't have that information at the moment. Polygon EK VM is fully open source. Everyone can see that how efficient our cryptography is and what's happening there. As I said, we are very excited about the mainnet. And one leak, if you're asking for a leak, is that we are working on Polygon EK VM 2.0. Currently, that's how we're calling it internally at the moment. It has even more efficient ZK primitives and some features that I can unfortunately not talk about at this point. But again, 2 or 3 months down the line, we will have something very, very interesting to share in that regard.
Luigi, you have the final say. Why should we be excited about Avalanche? What's coming up next?
Yeah, sure. So I'm really excited for the subnet vision to really come together. We have over 100 subnets in the pipeline right now, ready to be launched. These really span various use cases, whether it be gaming, NFTs, DeFi, institutional enterprise use cases. Just recently, KKR, $450 billion fund, just tokenized some of their securities on Avalanche. So we're trying to bring mainstream folks to blockchain, provide that very stable layer 1 for them to be able to kind of scale their technologies on top of. And then more importantly than that, for the subnet vision to come together, we really need what we've always needed, which is cross-subnet communication and messaging that's embedded in the protocol. This is something that's being worked on, has been worked on, and I'm very excited for that to come forth in fruition. That'll separate, I think, the platform from many others.
Well, guys, as a believer in crypto, thank you for building out technology that can actually scale this thing to the entire globe. So thank you for what you do.
Thanks, David. Thanks, everyone.